everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my channel. This video that you're about to watch is the second part of my UK trip that I just took with my mom. And that first part came out last week, so I will link that down below. That was London and Brighton. And today's video, you are going to see us setting off on a road trip around really like southwest England and tiny bit of Wales. So I did most of the driving, having never driven on what I consider, the wrong side of the road before. So that was definitely interesting and times a little bit scary, but overall I actually turned out to be a pretty good driver, which was why I drove most of the time because my mom, not the greatest British driver. So we are going to start today's video by heading out of Brighton and on to our next destination, Petworth House. We have left Brighton and we have headed out to the country. Today we are stopping at Petworth House, which you can see a bit of behind me here. And if I can, I will take you inside and show you some of what's inside. Petworth House in West Sussex was rebuilt in 1688 by Charles Seymour, Duke of Somerset, after he married 16-year-old Lady Elizabeth Percy, who had inherited the house at the age of 2. Her family had owned the estate for hundreds of years, and in fact, the 17th century home was constructed around a chapel that had been on the site since the early 1300s. It's really neat to see the walls of the 17th century home butting right up against the stone walls and stained glass windows of the chapel. Lady Elizabeth Seymour's story is fascinating, and though I don't have time to tell you her full story here, I'll link to the Wikipedia page about her in the description. One of the docents at Petworth told us all about her after I asked him about this painting of her in this absolutely gorgeous dress, which I think I might be adding to my to-make list. Petworth House has an amazing art collection, mostly amassed by all of the previous owners of the home, including several Van Dyck paintings, a couple more portraits by William Larkin, a humongous portrait of Henry VIII copied from Holbein's original by one of his students, and even an original painting of Anne Boleyn. We didn't have much time to explore the grounds, but what we did see were lovely. We stayed overnight in Martinstown near Dorchester and drove through the Devon countryside, stopping in Lyme Regis along the way. In my opinion, Lyme Regis is way too touristy, and a vicious seagull dive-bombed me and stole my ice cream. We stayed the next 2 nights in a 13th century B&B called Menabroom near the village of St. Neot in Cornwall. Our B&B hosts recommended their favorite seaside town to us, St. Ives, and now I'm recommending it to all of you. St. Ives was absolutely picture perfect. You take the short train ride in from St. Erth to St. Ives, which runs along the coast, and then you're greeted with the clearest turquoise water and sandy beach with tons of shops and cafes, all in a very easy walk along the water. And so many dogs! That was one of my favorite things about the UK, that dogs are allowed in cafes, pubs, beaches, etc. And it was really nice to see. The tide is way out here at St. Ives. So I'm walking out on the beach. so pretty. St. Ives is an absolute must if you're looking for a lovely beach town in the UK. And after having both a Cornish pasty and a cream tea, we took the train back to St. Erth and hopped in the car for a 10-minute ride across the peninsula to Marazion to go see Mount St. Michael, and then headed back to our B&B. Honestly, I think that St. Ives may actually have been my favorite village that we visited on our entire trip. We are near Marazion, and that is Mount St. Michael. The other side of this peninsula. The next morning, we headed north from our B&B towards Herefordshire, where we would be staying to have easy access to southeast Wales. Another day, another National Trust house. We are here at Knight's Haze, which is actually Victorian. Gothic revival. See what's inside. Knight's Haze was unlike any other stately home I've seen. Sir John Heathcote Armoury commissioned the architect Lyme Regis to build it, and it was completed in 1873 in the Gothic revival style, overlooking Sir John's lace-making factory. The interiors were designed by John Dibley Crace, grandson of the designer of Brighton Pavilion, Frederick Crace. I loved all of the very Nordic-feeling beams and painted decorations of the interior ceilings, and the various carved stone critters and people were very amusing, and every single one in the home was different. We only had time to take in a few of the gardens, but they were truly gorgeous, and I wish I could have explored more of them. It was an incredibly peaceful place overall, and it was the first place we went that really made me wish I could have brought costumes with me to take pictures in the beautiful grounds. We're in Wales today, and we have just come to Raglan Castle. Raglan Castle was one of my favorite places we visited, and was another place where I wish I could have taken costumed pictures. The whole thing honestly just felt like a giant playground, and I enjoyed exploring all the little nooks and crannies and climbing all the way up to the top of the keep to take in the view of the surrounding area. current Raglan Castle's construction was begun in the 1400s by Sir William ap Thomas and was expanded and remodeled by all of the subsequent owners. By the time of the English Civil War, Raglan was owned by Henry Somerset, Marquess of Worcester, a staunch royalist. The castle was under siege for 3 months in 1646, and when they finally surrendered, the castle was ordered to be totally destroyed. However, the fortifications proved to be too strong, and only a few walls were actually destroyed. But after the restoration of the monarchy, when the Somerset family came back into possession of the castle, they prioritized rebuilding their other houses, even quarrying stone, chimneys, window frames, and such from Raglan to use in his other homes. In 1756, this practice stopped, and the ruined castle became a tourist attraction pretty similar to what we see today. After visiting the castle, we went off in search of the Brecon Beacons, which are supposed to be mountains in that area. We did find the town of Brecon, which was nice, but not any mountains, just some hills. I think maybe if you don't live in the Pacific Northwest like I do, you may have been able to see mountains, but I might be a little biased. The next day, we drove to the Cotswolds and stopped first at Burton-on-the-Water, which I didn't film at all because it was so crowded with tourists. It did have a very pretty churchyard cemetery with some very old graves in it, though. Then we went to Broadway, which was a super cute town that I wish we had had more time in before all of the shops closed. Welcome to Broadway. Everything is just about closing up for the day, unfortunately, but it's a very cute town. We might come back tomorrow. Today is our last full day here, and we have come to Sudley Castle, which you can see behind me. Sudley Castle first began as a Roman manor house, and this graphic shows the castle's expansion over the years. There was a large historical museum exhibit in the tower, and I appreciated this display of Tudor gowns. Notably, Sudley Castle was home to Catherine Parr after she married Thomas Seymour, and she's buried in the chapel in the grounds. A large part of the museum display is dedicated to the antique textiles collected by Emma Dent, who lived at Sudley Castle from 1856 through 1900, and not only amassed an amazing collection of lace, embroidery, stump work, which I'd never heard about before, clothing, and other such textiles, but also dedicated herself to the improvement and welfare of both the castle and the nearest town of Winchcombe. Sudley Castle is one of the few remaining castles in England that's still a private residence, and is still lived in by Emma's family, the Dent Brocklehursts. In fact, we unknowingly wound up chatting with one of the co-owners, Molly Dent Brocklehurst, while touring the grounds. We found out afterwards who exactly she was, though we could tell that she and her small party were special, as they had had their dogs with them, and dogs are otherwise not allowed to visit Sudley. It was her parents who first decided to open Sudley to the public to pay for the running and upkeep of the estate. The grounds themselves are gorgeous and very unique. Sudley Castle was attacked by the parliamentarians in 1644 and partially destroyed, and it remained a ruin until 1837, when it was purchased by John and William Dent, wealthy glove makers, who decided to restore and rebuild much of the castle, while still leaving part of it as picturesque ruins. The gardens are beautiful and are currently home to a plethora of animal sculptures handmade from various plants, as well as the many formal gardens around the estate. It is our last morning here in England. We are about to head over to Heathrow Airport and fly home, the end of the trip. So as you can tell, I am now back home, but before I end this video, I actually wanted to show you the few items that I bought for myself on this trip. I really did not buy very much because I was budgeting for the trip and not souvenirs, and also I just didn't have much room to take things home with me, but I got a couple of gifts for friends, and then I got the Patterns of Fashions books that I mentioned in the last video, and I also bought myself a Queen Elizabeth Memorial tote bag. I got this one at Kenwood House. And the other really cool item that I'm going to show you, I'm going to show it to you like by holding the camera as well, because it's just going to reflect light here. But when I was in Broadway, I found a Regency era fashion plate. So yeah, I'll give you a closer look here in a second. But like, this is just something that you cannot find in the US. We don't have Regency era fashion plates. Like, we can get the Victorian ones, but not Regency. So even though it's kind of an ugly dress, I decided that it was a good price. I had to bring it home with me, and amazingly, it came home intact, glass and all. So let me show you just a little flip through of the Patterns of Fashion books, and also a little closer up of this Regency fashion plate. So first, the plate. Now, there wasn't a year on this, but I would hazard to guess that this is from probably the 1800s, maybe the 18 teens, kind of based on the weird hat. Now, it does say on it, Costume Day, I can't speak French, but I think it's Rouen, which I looked up, and it is either a city in France or it's a duck. So I'm not sure which one they're going with. I'm thinking it's the city or like a region maybe, but this is the plate. She's wearing a very, very strange hat, cute little wrapped scarf, and then a rather plain white dress with a blue sash, little blue slippers. But yeah, I thought it was just really cool to have a piece of Regency history, so I had to take her home with me. So for the Patterns of Fashion books, first off, if you have not seen these new books and you're only familiar with the old books, I just want to show you how much more is in the new books. So you can see just how thick, it's like double the thickness of the old books. And then as far as what is in it, I'm going to attempt to flip through these just a little bit for you here. They flip really slowly because I haven't even looked at them yet. But you can see we've got color now. We actually have a lot more patterns than were in the older ones. So overall, I am super, super excited to dive into these. I've used the patterns in the older books so often, and so I know these are going to be incredibly useful. I'm sure there are some that you recognize in there, and then there's some that are newer ones. It's also cool in the back, you can see some of our neat costuming friends who have used these books, and you can see them kind of as examples. Look at all those beautiful color photos. It's really amazing. This is all stuff that was not in the previous books whatsoever, all these color photos, and I think they're just really great examples. So to look at the Patterns of Fashion 2, this again is a reworking. This one's even thicker than the first one actually, but this is the later years. So we've got mid-Victorian through, I believe, early 1920s in this book. And yeah, some of these look familiar, some of them are totally new, which is just very, very cool. Again, I use these books all the time. I can't recommend them highly enough. That said, they are expensive, so it's something that you're going to want to budget for, whether you get the old ones, which are expensive because they're out of print, or the new ones, which are mostly expensive because of the shipping charge. If you're in the UK, you're lucky. You can just go pick them up. And then this one is an entirely new book that they have written. This is 1695 through 1795. So yeah, I took a quick look at it while I was there because I knew I wanted to get it, but Jenny showed it to me anyway. But this is entirely new, and I'm so excited to dive into this and see all of the cool patterns and resources that this one has to offer. Oh, that green stripe. What great books these are. Seriously, some of the best costume books that exist. And that is going to be it for me for this video and for this UK vlog series. Hopefully you have enjoyed these two vlogs. Again, if you missed the first one, I will link it down below in the description. That was London and Brighton. But I had such an amazing time in the UK traveling with my mom. We work really well as travel partners. And so like we went to Hawaii last year, but other than that, it has been a while. It's been like since pre-pandemic that we've really gotten to travel. So it was so, so nice to be able to meet up with her because she lives in California, and to be able to meet up with her in London and then get to travel together. And hopefully I will get to travel again with her pretty soon. So again, that's going to be it. If you like this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos, not like this, but you know, sewing videos, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, with my usually sewing vlogs out on Tuesdays and other costuming content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. You can also see a lot more trip photos, by the way, because I posted like 10 pictures per day of my trip on Instagram as it was happening, so go check that out over there. Also, if you'd like to help support my channel, I have linked my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks right here on YouTube. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Sharon, Mirage, Laura, Jean, and Janelle. Thank you all so, so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!